And now let's move on to the next session, which is neuro ophthalmology semifinals. We are in Hall Braille, and we have two speakers for this. Again, 6 minutes for speaking and 2 minutes for discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly introduce judges. Dr. Kumudini Sharma. Second judge is Dr. Navin Jaykumar. And the third judge is Dr. Sunita Lobo. So can I request judges to please come forward and announce the first speaker, please?
I assume the others are here. Dr. Kumudini, I see.
I'm here, sir.
Dr. Sunita.
Good morning. I'm here, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So let's start off with the first paper without further ado. Just a minute. Dr. Kumudini, do you have that names with you? You can just read out that first person.
Dr. Mausumi.
Mausumi, yes.
Mausumi Banerjee.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Mausumi, if you're here, can you start screen sharing and make your presentation?
Okay. Sorry, doctor, I don't have, because they just, I was informed yesterday evening only about that.
Okay, before we start, I'd like to request one thing to all the judges of the previous session. Please send your marking sheet to the WhatsApp number you have been given.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome, sir. And judges, for this session, if you don't have the marking sheet or Google form, please write down the marks on paper and you can send it to WhatsApp number, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Mausumi, you're good to go.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Yes.
Very good morning, everyone. I'll be discussing my free paper to establish the relationship between the structural and functional parameters in idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Sorry, it's not going. Just a second.
You go to the left-hand corner where you have the forward and backward indication. Then you please go and click there.
Thank you, sir.
Don't click on the laptop.
There wasn't any financial interest in the context of the subject of this presentation. So IH is a condition which is characterized by elevated intracranial pressure and is a diagnosis of exclusion. The major morbidity of IH is visual impairment, usually reversible if it is treated timely. However, 40% of the cases may show permanent visual loss. Because of the increase in the global prevalence of obesity, there has been an associated increase in IIH. Therefore, it necessitates the evidence-based diagnostic tools and treatment strategies. Now, OCT can help in IH to differentiate papilledema from pseudopapilledema, monitoring the progression or resolution of the papilledema, and also to determine the cause of loss of vision. The aim of a study was to quantify the relationship between the optic nerve head tomography, that is the structural parameters, with visual functional parameters in early and established cases of papilledema in IH at presentation and at 6 months follow-up. Ethics committee approval was taken, and it was a longitudinal prospective study which was performed between December 2017 to February 2019. So IH patients were recruited from the neuro-ophthalmology clinic and neurology and ophthalmology OPD. Chronic papilledema patients were excluded. 27 patients who underwent medical management and weight loss were included in the analysis, and patients who underwent ONSF were excluded from the analysis. IH patients diagnosed on basis of modified Dandy criteria, early and established papilledema, and age more than equals to 18 years were included in the study, and patients who didn't give consent, evidence of hydrocephalus or space-occupying lesions on MRI, any pre-existing optic neuropathies, and patients with chronic and atrophic papilledema were excluded from the study. The structural parameters were analyzed based on 3 scans on OCT. The optic disc scan, which evaluated the RNFL thickness, the macular scan, which evaluated the GCL-IPL complex, and the 5-line raster scan, which evaluated the optic disc height. The functional parameters were best corrected visual acuity, color vision, contrast, visual field charting, VR, and multifocal electroretinogram. All the patients received oral acetazolamide in dosage accordance to the requirement. Patients were followed up at 6-weekly interval for 6 months. Appropriate statistical analysis was done, and p-value less than equals to 0.05 was considered significant. Coming to the results, 80% of the cases were female and 20% were male. The mean age of the patients was 31 plus minus 7.3 years. 90.7% patients had headache as the most common symptom, and mean duration of symptoms was 4.5 months. The other systemic comorbidities were PCOD, hypothyroidism, and weight gain within the past 1 year. The mean CSF pressure was 28.27 millimeter of mercury, and all the patients had partial empty sella on MRI. 50% of the patients had transverse sinus stenosis on MRV. Now, there was a statistically significant decline in the thickness of the optic disc height and the RNFL over the 6 months. However, GCL had a statistically significant improvement in the thickness in the first 6 weeks, followed by no such statistically significant changes. The functional parameters also showed a statistically significant improvement over the 6 months. Now, all the 3 structural parameters had a statistically significant correlation with the functional parameters at baseline. However, at 6 months, RNFL did not show any statistically significant correlation with any of the functional parameters at 6 months. In order to understand the role of structural parameters to predict the final visual outcome, a correlation between the two was obtained. So the RNFL at baseline did not show any statistically significant correlation with the final functional parameters at 6 months. Interestingly, GCL-IPL, when the GCL-IPL values at 6 weeks had a statistically significant correlation with the final functional parameters, and it was better and more stronger than that noted with the baseline values. This is a graphical representation of the structural parameters at baseline with the final functional parameters. Now, coming to the discussion, all patients had increased optic disc height and RNFL thickness at presentation. The proprietary algorithms to measure GCL-IPL thickness in presence of significant optic nerve head swelling may result in erroneous appearance of GCL-IPL thinning. In our patients also, patients who had significant disc edema revealed erroneous thinning of GCL-IPL at presentation. Therefore, the Iowa 3D segmentation protocol is better to measure the GCL-IPL. However, it requires superior technical skill and is time consuming. The baseline GCL-IPL and the optic disc height values showed a significant correlation with the final functional parameters in our study. However, baseline RNFL thickness did not show a statistically significant correlation with any of the final visual outcomes. So in order to conclude, it is important to identify the artifacts in the GCL-IPL measurements, particularly in presence of disc edema. In the setting of severe papillary edema, RNFL can misguide the prognosis. Therefore, despite the limitations, the GCL-IPL thickness can be a valuable tool for an objective evaluation of the integrity of the optic nerve in patients with IIH, and optic disc height may be used as an alternative or in combination with GCL-IPL in these cases. Thank you.
Dr. Naveen, you have to unmute yourself, I think so.
Sorry. Thank you, Mausumi. Any questions from Dr. Sunita, Dr. Kumudini? Would you like to ask him?
Yeah, yesterday we have asked questions to her.
What did you ask her? Because I wasn't there. So
Yeah, I just asked her, why do you find that GCIPL is correlating more to the functional outcome than RNFL? What is the reason for that?
what was your answer, Mausumi, to that? Because I had the same question.
Oh, you had the same? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Actually, ma'am also gave me quite a good input, and it was because of the change in the diameter of the ganglion cells and the difference in the diameter of the ganglion cells and the RNFL, and therefore the subtle changes will be better represented by the ganglion cell layer changes.
Okay.
We won't be able to be appreciated with the RNFL change.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
included early patients, early
Yes.
papilledema.
Yes, ma'am.
So what visual functions were like altered, which improved at 6 months? Because we know that papilledema doesn't, even the contrast sensitivity doesn't get too much affected in papilledema. So what changed? I couldn't understand that part. You kept saying there's a correlation between the GPL, the parameter which you're studying versus the visual function.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just elaborate on that?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, interestingly, in our patients, first of all, the mean duration of symptoms was also 4.5 months when the patient presented to us. And in all our patients, ma'am, I can show you that there was a change in the functional parameters over 6 months, and the improvement was statistically significant. Though it's true that the contrast sensitivity at baseline wasn't very low, but ma'am, all our patients had at the range of 1.2 to 1.4, which at the end improved to 1.65 or more than that. So there was, and the major difference, the statistically significant correlation was mainly with mean deviation, contrast sensitivity. These were the two main functional parameters with which we noted the major correlation.
Now, my point is then your title says early papilledema. So if it is 4 months already, then it is not truly early papilledema.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Based
you
on the
so you have to be a little careful, because that's why when you're following a method case that you're presenting, you're thinking what is early benefits for. So just to,
okay.
I think that you have to be a little careful how you title the paper then.
Okay.
I think our time is up. So thank you very much, Mausumi.
Thank you.
We can have the next paper. Yeah, so the next paper is by Dr. Harshvardhan.
Good morning, respected judges.
Dr. Harshvardhan, can you tell us your free paper number, please? Just we need to note that down.
Yeah, F2339.
2339.
Yeah.
Yeah. Previous speaker didn't tell us that time. We'll get it. Okay. Please continue. Sorry.
Dr. Kumadini and Dr. Sunita, the previous paper is free paper is 84.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, respected judges. My topic is artificial intelligence and Wolfram language in papilledema. There are no financial interests. We have contributors in the form of neurology paper. There was an article published in New England Journal of Ophthalmology of Medicine in 2020 about using artificial intelligence for diagnostic purpose, like to detect papilledema from ocular fundus findings, especially for neurophysicians. However, the paper did not include any other further parameters, and whether visual acuity will improve or not after papilledema, or will it go down, depends on various other parameters, including to confirm the papilledema, confirm the visual disruption, the progress of disruption, and to confirm if atrophy is already setting in. So we have been using visual field like perimetry as a parameter, and many times it has been shown in various papers that there is a significant correlation between visual field sensitivity loss and the grade of papilledema, as well as the disc photographs. Visual loss is a huge issue, as you also saw in the previous paper. Like one of the papers says that 24% of people show blindness after such an episode. The risk factors for visual loss include male gender, systemic hypertension, anemia, black race, younger age, obesity, higher opening pressures, severe papilledema, and significant vision loss at presentation. The timeliness of surgery is very important, because we should know that there is a loss of neurons that is occurring. And if it could be diagnosed earlier at the stage of evaluation itself, then we can do timely surgery. We normally perform the transconjunctival approach for optic nerve fenestration. However, there are other surgeries like VP shunt and also medical management. So our purpose was to study conventional artificial intelligence tools in papilledema versus Wolfram language analysis for predicting the outcome of treatment. The methods we saw 291 eyes of papilledema over the last 5 to 6 years, and there was with early vision loss, and they were analyzed by conventional versus Wolfram language, and there was multiple regression analysis that was performed. So we included pictures like these, where pre-op and post-op images on the OCT were included, pre-op, post-op 1 month images. This is the artificial intelligence module in which we put the optic disc photographs for machine learning, and the machine gives us the answers in terms of whether it is improving or going worse. For example, this is an unclassified picture which shows the disc findings in multiple patients. However, when we do segmentation, we can easily note that some of the blood vessels are getting lost as the papilledema grows, and therefore we can grade it into grade 1 to 4. In that order. This is another picture where we saw the vessels disappearing as the papilledema progressed. This is Harlick's entropy, which talks about texture features of the retina. It talks about commotion in the retina. So when these parameters are also included in the artificial intelligence software, where we see that the retinal commotion increases as the papilledema progresses, and as it decreases, the retinal nerve fibers they appear more clearly. These are the features for the optic disc. We know the Frisson classification of papilledema. However, what we included were the top 10 indices in prognostication, including vessel discontinuity index, obscuration around the disc margin, nasal to temporal ratio, vessel discontinuity index to disc proximity, area of the largest region, and about up to 10 different parameters for optic disc evaluation. Now, this is the Wolfram language. Now, it's a unique engine which uses algorithms to do analysis, answers our questions, and generates reports with its intelligent software based on algorithms. And then this further increases our prediction level and success and guidance and guides success along with the conventional tools. This is the website which we used for doing the calculation, Wolfram Mathematica. So basically we selected cases and then analyzed the success who were treated. And secondly, we also selected cases in which we had suggested treatment, but they denied treatment. And there were other cases which were treated, but they failed in spite they were done in spite of the algorithms suggesting failure. So we tested all three possibilities. And we also included dynamic retinal pulsations in the Wolfram software. Fractional dimensional analysis was also included, in which various quadrants of the optic disc are taken, and they are analyzed for pre and post-op, pre and post-treatment features. This is in which we graded from grade 0 to grade 5. These are further pictures of pre and post-op optic disc, and these are the Brooks membrane pictures, which shows indentation when the papilledema increases and it flattens out when it decreases. Apart from that, we used images from VEP, DTI, and color choroidal folds, as well as color vision changes to add to the software. So ultimately, we got 89% sensitivity and 82% specificity with the conventional algorithm. With Wolfram, we got 84%, and combined, we got 90%. There have been other features of machine learning used so far, but nobody has used this software so far to predict outcomes. So the answer is that if you can give the prediction through the software, we can get good success rate up to 90%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harshvardhan.
Yes.
Dr. Kumudini, Dr. Sunita, any comments that you have? I had a question. Is this particular software, you've looked at it only in terms of predicting outcomes, but quite often you have issues in predicting, in distinguishing between, say, papilledema versus pseudopapilledema, or early papilledema versus probably a normal crowded disc kind of thing. Does the Wolfram language look at that as well, or is it that you already diagnose papilledema and then the language software takes over, the machine learning takes over?
Yes, sir. So we have fed all possible possibilities of suspicious discs. So it included actual papilledemas, drusen, crowded discs, and many others. And when clinical findings were obviously the main thing that we started off with. Actually, we had presented the initial part of the paper last year with the clinical findings, but with the software included now, this is a new paper altogether, which includes digital tensor imaging, color vision, choroidal folds, and even the clinical findings, including the, as you said, crowded disc. So we had some slides on that also, where we could show the drusen and we could enter into the software that this is not true papilledema. So all that included, then the software starts predicting the outcomes in a better way. And we are collaborating with other international doctors also, who are providing us with these images, so that we get a more globalized outcome from this software. So it's actually in the patent phase, but so that's why we cannot reveal so many things at the same time.
Okay.
But obviously, it is giving us 90% accuracy, and that is why we are very.
Dr. Kumudini has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. You
Yes,
said
ma'am.
you did the diffuser tensor imaging, DTI. So which segment of the optic nerve you study the DTI?
The orbital part, madam.
But we have the main edema at the disc head.
Yes, madam. But the sheath also shows thickening on DTI. It shows enhancement.
DTI only shows the fibers, white matter
Yes.
fibers, not the sheath at all. It's
Yes,
a white
ma'am.
matter packing, you know, and isotropia of the water molecule you study in that.
Yes, madam.
So it's very difficult to study the intraocular part of the
No,
optic
it
nerve.
shows the, madam, it
But
shows
in
the,
intraorbital itself, it's so difficult. You know, we have done a study, but it's difficult to do it.
yeah, madam, I have the image of that also on my laptop. It shows the disc part, which is projecting into the globe, as well as the,
Difficult to do. It's so small. And where you put the ring, you know, because not the whole nerve you can study at one time. It takes long. At a particular segment, you put the ring and you study the anisotropia over
Yes.
there. So in the intraocular part, which is so small, where you could put the.
actually,
Because
madam,
intraorbital, it is so difficult, then intraocular would be much more difficult, I think so.
I
agreed, madam. Actually, the contributions were made by multiple, including the neurologists. So those
Okay.
images were
Yeah, but
provided by the
neurologist-
neurologists.
Discuss with your radiologist which part you study, okay?
I'll ask Dr. Sunita, maybe she has a question. Dr.
No,
Sunita,
sir.
you have
I
it.
think it's already time.
Thank you. I think our time is up on that. Thank you very much to the presenters and to my co-judges as well. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
madam.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking it up so smoothly. Thank you so much, all speakers.